Sì, ho già fatto. Sei stato in Italia, vero?
Stato in Italia, sì.
Perché?
Non era...
Ah, non ho sentito.
E allora era tutto umido, cosa.
Sì.
Poi poi caldo, ma piove.
Climate change non esiste, devo andare lì. Io devo andare a Utah per fare mm, marzo, fine
Marzo?
marzo. Quindi vediamo se c'è neve. Più o meno, cioè andare a fare ski non è economico, non è economico. Ma ho trovato il volo diretto da Miami e il volo non è troppo caro. No, 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 è Delta. No, con Spirit, figurati, no, quello... Spirit posso andare una ora, forse due, ma più di 2 ore? No. È cheap, ma a me non piace stare così stretto con tutta la gente. Sono 3 ore e mezzo andando e... No, 4 ore andando e 3 ore e mezzo... No, 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 penso che è più o meno lo stesso. Salt Lake City, secondo me è più o meno lo stesso. Perché abbiamo anche visto Denver, ma Denver costava di più, poi per andare a fare lo ski lì devi guidare molto tempo. Qui a Utah, Park City è di vicino, meno di una ora. Quello di novembre, penso... so. Perché quello a dicembre non è successo, perché non c'era il quorum. Al finale non potevamo avere tre persone. Novembre.
No, giorno per giorno dopo.
Ah, non ho visto i Venezia. Devo vedere. I think that's where they're staging for the drainage that they're installing.
Minutes? Because I didn't.
That's what I'm texting Shantae about.
Yeah. Okay. Because I thought like I didn't think I saw them. I never can get this internet.
I got
to work.
connected. What did it say?
we cannot connect to this. Yeah, I can do it as well.
Yeah, if you can just do whenever I'm talking.
Okay, just give me a second, because ready.
So calling to order Sustainability and Resilience Advisory Board for Biscayne Park, our January 2023 meeting. Let's see. So we'll do a roll call. Kate Davis,
Present.
Daniela Carbonera,
Present.
I'm present. Alexander Bernhard. So let's see. I kind of wanted to. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Shantae was telling me to text her personal. Forgot her work phone. All right, we'll text her after. Before going into anything on the agenda, I'm kind of excited to hear from Kate. I had a conversation with one of the commissioners, Oliveira, and I was very happy to hear, is very excited and into bioswales and looking at some, when we were talking about last time, the possibility of doing bioswales. And we had a nice conversation about it. I referred to some architects and designers that are actually right here in the neighborhood that do bioswales. And I had met with them before. And then I recommended that she get in contact with Kate, since obviously that's your area of expertise. I'd be curious to know. I don't know if I think they had a meeting today. I don't know if you're able to hop on for that, or if you know what's
Yeah,
happening.
she was having the meeting. I wasn't asked to join that meeting, but I did have a discussion with her prior to that over the weekend, and just kind of filled her in on some of the stuff that I've brought to you guys before, like the Monroe County
Mhm.
manual. I think I forgot the name of it off the top of my head, but I know that I presented.
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So I sent that to her, and I talked to her a little bit about that, as well as the city of Coral Gables have recently looked into there. They have a whole section and guidance on swales. It's not necessarily related to drainage or bioswales.
Mhm.
They have a whole section is related to like what you can and can't do in swales and public right of ways. And it kind of tells you about plantings and gives suggestions of what they would or would not approve, but it's kind of more of a regulatory guidance because
Yeah.
you could take that as a template and run with it and however you wanted to, but it
Right.
kind of just gives of how they regulate it and their swale areas, which is kind of like, I mean, we have lots of swales, not necessarily used for drainage in here.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that's always kind of been a topic. But she kind of, you know, she discussed like the idea and I kind of just talked to her a little bit about it, but she was under the idea that we could do, you know, maybe use some of our right of way areas and the medians and stuff. But I kind of was talking to her about that in order to do these bioswales, it has to be an open area, not already vegetated with trees because you can't dig and, you know, regrade where there's going to be tree roots that would be in conflict. So we kind of talked about, you know, looking into potential areas where there is availability to do a small type project like this, maybe potentially a pilot project. There's
Right.
a little bit of funding that could be going towards it. I don't know. It probably is not enough. I think she said something like, I don't know, between $10,000 and $20,000. So that's not
Right.
a lot, but she was going to talk to that company that you referred her to kind of, I guess, one of the projects, but trying to get an understanding of what they've been doing down here.
Yeah.
And if they saw that there's, you know, potential for these types of projects here in Biscayne Park and, you know, what their recommendations would be.
Okay.
I also talked to her about, you know, potentially including that into a code requirement, kind of like the Monroe County one, but it could be, you know, potentially either be for drainage purposes or for, you know, doing a bioswale where people could actually plant in it, but to make that some type of requirement in, you know, new development or in redevelopment, because, you know, the elevation, the flood zone elevations are of houses, that's changed by FEMA, right? I think it's already has, or it's about to be changed. So, you know, house elevations are going to be much higher and it's going to be potentially flooding out our neighbors and flooding out our streets. So she was pretty excited about that idea and was very concerned about that fact that, you know, about potential flooding
Yeah.
of these public, private and public areas and our roadways. So she was really excited about that and was, you know, excited to see. I followed up and I sent her that manual and she thought it was really great and gave her a better understanding and idea of, you know, what we could do from here.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that would be to do like a pilot project. That would be interesting. I was always wondering about the roots on the trees because pretty much all of our medians have extensive trees in them.
Right.
So I don't know how that would even happen, like digging around roots or how you can even do that. But if we could do anything, I think one of the things she mentioned too, which would be interesting, is on private property too. People doing things like a rain garden or something like that, and you know, wondering if that would actually have any kind of like actual effect. If somebody in their backyard would maybe like dig out an area that would be kind of like a drainage area for their property. So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I think she had an intro conversation with them today, and then I wasn't able to attend either. And then I think they're gonna maybe follow up with more detail. She mentioned she was gonna get the manager on board.
Yeah. One of the other things that she thought that Mario may have that she didn't have, but she thought Mario may have is these area and I told her to bring this up to today in her meeting is to get that information from Mario to see where these hot spots are for that
Right.
improvements and then to do it like if anything the funding could be used to see if there's any public areas around these hotspots where we could potentially do a project because that's obviously going to be the criteria is doing it in an area where we need it and then having the open space with no
Right.
you know massive trees. I mean they're small trees they can potentially be relocated or removed but not worth it if we have
No.
you know the other idea is you know doing it in the right-of-way areas in front of private properties because that's
Yeah.
really the only area that we have available right now that's not vegetated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if houses are going to be higher now than they were before, the water has to go somewhere. So that would be one place that,
Right, and it could be like, just requiring that per code for these. Development. If anything, again, we'd have to look and refer to like a land use or engineer, or drainage engineer to see. 'Cause some of our lots are really small, so,
Right.
if you're taking away for these swale areas, if you're requiring it on all four sides, or assuming four sides, there could be more if you're including requiring it surrounding the entire property, so it maintains on site all drainage, then you could be taking away from their buildable area and having to,
Mm.
make the lot lines wider to allow for the swale and then, the setback area.
yeah.
Minimum, maybe it's just even just along the roadway, and if
Right.
anything, I mean, that could help a little bit before
Yeah.
catching it before it goes to the road, or even requiring that I didn't talk to her about the things I'm talking about now because I thought about it after I spoke to her.
Yeah.
But even like requiring that the grading of the house is at an angle that goes towards the roadway, and then requiring the swale there to allow, more, keeping the, lot lines the same, and then just requiring it along the roadway so that people aren't, burdened by that four sides of having to have a swale. But definitely 100% recommend, if anything, is, to require a swale before along of these properties along canals, along the canal, so that that water catches and treats before discharging into the canals.
Yeah.
This biosoil have a extra drainage power than the normal soil we have here. So yes, any kind of relation,
Yeah, well, it has to be of like permeable.
like 3 times, 4 times.
No. It just can't be like, filled material. It could be, it could be lime rock, but most of the time it's just soil and sod, and it's just at a, it's sloped down so that the water will drain and collect there and allowed to percolate. It's very minor, you can visually see it, but it's minor. And, when we say bioswales, you could do appropriate plantings that can withstand long
The
periods.
swell is not private property, it's a kind of Biscayne property, right? Is the portion from the street to the,
Right, within the public right of way.
so we have, I think, 4 or 5 critical cross in Biscayne Park. Maybe we can use exhibition one of them. They go every time flooded, and just is for corner.
Mm-hmm.
It is not too much to invest.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even, it could, if it's like 4 corners of the roadway, it could be each pocket on the side.
Mm.
Like around or like semicircle area.
Yeah.
You could just go into there and percolate. I mean, there's other designs. I mean, that's why, we have to, I think, look at those key hotspot areas and see if there's the options, if there's available area there, and then find the funding to be able to do like a pilot project to see if it works, to see how the residents feel about it, like
When is coming back the big rain? In March, April,
May.
right? Do before that.
Yeah. I mean, realistically speaking, I don't know if that's something that would happen this year, just because of the fact that they're working on these big drainage projects right now that are like the big infrastructure projects. Who knows? Maybe we have this heavy material, these heavy machines around, and we can take that advantage of that and maybe get them to do something. It'd be interesting because all the machinery is there, so they could definitely dig out. It'd be interesting to look at. They're actually drilling right near my house. Not drilling, they're digging right near my house right now on the back of 11th. I guess it's 11th Court. Basically a street that was like kind of like a dead end street. And for the last week, they've just been digging. And I guess what they're doing is digging like a French drain system for where the water is going to go.
Yeah.
I'm assuming because I just see like the whole road is dug up and it's like very, very deep. And I always wondered where they were gonna put that, because otherwise they would have had to dig up the regular street on 121st. But it seems like they're digging up that back street. I'm assuming that's what they're doing. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Okay. All right.
Putting in the drain, the culvert drains and then the French drain. I'm assuming it's a French drain going down that alleyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting way to do it. That I'll be curious to see how that works. But I mean, if we can do something, like a bioswale, I actually had wanted to do something like that there. So they already used that spot, but it'll be interesting to see what we can do. So let's see.
So tomorrow I'm gonna be sitting in with Mario. He has a meeting set up with Miami Waterkeepers.
Oh, cool.
And what is it, Pier and I forgot the Everglades. I can look, I don't remember the exact name of this other group, but he asked me to sit in and potentially, to have some topics for tomorrow's call. I don't really know what the call, like what to expect. So I don't quite know. I mean, if you guys have any ideas or something that you would like me to discuss, I'm happy to, bring it up if I have the opportunity. I just don't, know exactly what they want to talk about, but Mario said to come with some topics and ideas. And I think my number one thing, and if they can help in any way, would be for this bioswale. Like a pilot project, potential grants or fundings that they could suggest.
This year there are no any fund for the solar, even for solar ready. Please.
No, I think for solar, well, we had put aside, we had gotten $10,000 approved for preparing some of the electrical systems for solar. I don't know what's happening with that, but there was $10,000 set aside for that for this year. And we also were waiting, we still haven't received the grant funding, that $80,000 grant from the state,
Okay.
which would have resulted in studies that will help us identify some of these hotspots. Because I think the study that's already there is not recent. I don't think it's a very recent study. So I don't know how that's changed since the last time it was done. But that's one of the ways that we'll be able to unlock funds is first you have to do that study. And then once you've done that study and you've identified the problem areas, then you can apply for, there's pretty much endless funding from the state and from the government to get this, but you have to have those studies first. So,
You mean the drainage study you're referring to?
well, it's not only a
Right.
drainage study, it's basically like a flood, what do they call it? It's like a vulnerability study, climate change vulnerability study. And part of that has to do
That
with
was-
flooding.
Yeah, that was why we applied for that grant. and
Yeah.
those are conversations we had a while ago.
Yeah, that's where that funding is supposed to. We never got the funding because apparently they're totally backed up, and there's like tons of municipalities that got these grants. And so I mean, Mario's been trying to follow. Maybe you can ask him. That'd be a good thing to ask him, just what the status of that is. But I mean, Miami Waterkeeper, I would imagine they're probably going to be most interested in the canal more than anything.
The other group is Everglades Law Center.
Okay, yeah, I've talked to them before.
What are they about?
When I talked to them, it was like a year and a half ago. I talked to one of the co-founders. She lives in Miami Shores. I don't remember exactly what it is they do. I think they do more of like the legal side of things. So when if there's something that's going to be happening that they can, try to prevent in like a legal way, that they work on those kind of things. I'm sure they're probably involved in that expansion of the urban development boundary that was recently approved by the commission, unfortunately. I think they do that kind of thing, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I don't live in the canal, so I really don't know what kind of challenges they face other than runoff, which I would assume is, an issue that needs to be looked at. And then maybe it would be a good idea to hear from them what some best practices are for communicating the fertilizer ban to the municipality, because I would think most people here don't even know about that. And we can put it up on Nextdoor and things like that, but maybe there's some recommendations they have on communicating that. Okay, so let's see, new business. Oh, so one of the things that now I don't remember who I was talking to about it, but I think it was either Mario or one of the commissioners that they want suggestions on web content. And so I wanted to just have a discussion on what web content each one of us might be interested in recommending, or maybe just writing something up that's maybe one section of the web content related to sustainability and resilience. So, I mean, obviously we have our focus, which is on flood resilience and solar energy. So those are definitely two items that we'd want to talk about. And, you know, home energy efficiency is another one. I think the one that interests me a lot is the new Inflation Reduction Act, the funds that are available there for home renovations, energy efficiency renovations. So that would be something I would be interested in, maybe just writing up and providing people some links to how they can access those funds. They give, you know, you have funds for well, solar is one of the tax incentives. They increased it again to 30%.
Yeah.
For the next 10 years, I think, or 20 years. I think it's 10 years. And you can get huge amount of money on if you do heat pumps, like $8,000, something like that. And there's really a lot of fun if you convert your stove from gas to electric. You can get significant money if you do a heat pump water heater. If you do heat pump dryer. So there's like a lot of money that people can get. Some of it is tax rebates and some of it is actually tax credits at the time of purchase. So it's pretty exciting what you can get. So, I mean, that was something that I would be
So
interested.
it's no proportion to the total investment, but for each item that are special.
Yeah. So like, I think it's 30% with the heat pump. It's like 30% with a max 30% tax rebate with a maximum of $8,000. But I think after a certain period in time, it actually becomes a discount at the point of sale. So when you buy it, you don't have to do anything with your taxes. They just subtract $8,000. That's kind of how it was in the beginning with the car, with the EV credit, which is now totally different. But that's something that I would be interested in.
So you're proposing to publish this on the Biscayne Park portal?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm not the authority on it, but I would want to publish some links and maybe just talk generally about why those different improvements can be helpful. And most of them are related to, you know, being more efficient and using less natural gas.
I don't quite understand I don't even know what a heat pump is. So maybe you fill me in.
It's just a more efficient air conditioning system. It's like about 30% more efficient than a traditional. So like if you've ever seen like a mini split system, that's a type of heat pump.
Okay.
So it's just like a lot more efficient.
HVAC.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't use ducts. Generally, they don't use ducts. You can do it with ducts. It's not as efficient because then it has to still go through the attic and lose a lot of heat. But the mechanism, it basically transfers heat from inside to the outside, or the opposite when it's the winter. And it's a different mechanism to do that than a traditional system. So it's a lot more efficient.
Okay. But in natural gas, why would they be going away from that? Because natural gas is
It's clean.
is a clean energy
It's-
that
it's
we're all
weird
moving towards
because
gas.
not all the electricity is produced by nuclear power plant.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're just stimulating to use more electricity.
Yeah.
And
Less
This is weird.
electricity,
Contradic-
it is very
contradictory.
contradictory. I'm wondering if this is like some lobby FPNL thing. That's why I asked, because everybody's moving towards gas, clean gas, like liquid natural gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really from what I understand, the reason they're doing that is because methane is like much more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide.
You have the methane slip when you don't burn.
Right. So I think the idea is number one, then there's also like a lot of studies that have come out recently that are talking about how like gas stoves in the house, like gas cooking, it like releases carcinogens in the air. So it really like adversely affects air quality. So it's a bigger deal in areas where electricity, like here we're lucky because electricity is like dirt cheap. So but in other areas where people have to like buy, and gas is dirt cheap here too, but it's not the same in other places. So in other areas, it's actually cheaper for you to have electric appliances. Like let's say in New York, if you want to have like electric heating versus gas heating, it's much less expensive.
I'm not good, but I'm personally suspicious about when there is this study about these cancerous and things about the gas burning. There is a little bit more of lobby, industrial lobbying behind. Because I tell you, the
It's possible. It's possible.
USA is a kind of electrical waste. I mean, the way you are using electrical in USA is no proportion over the rest of the world.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We use a lot more energy than other
Cheap.
places.
And there is a lot of investment in nuclear power plant. There is 54 in USA, right?
I don't know. But I do know that I mean, natural gas in general, like burning natural gas, which is how most of the electricity is created in Florida, is still like really bad for the environment because burning natural gas still creates carbon dioxide. And not to mention the fact that methane is horrible for the atmosphere. It's a like, I think it's like 10 times as potent of a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide.
You told just the natural gas is used to produce electricity.
Correct.
So we
Yeah.
ask to consume more electricity, so we will consume more natural gas.
Well, that's in Florida.
Burn with the stove.
No, well, that's in Florida. So remember, like this is like for the whole country. So like
No.
in Florida, we happen to use natural gas, and of course, the idea is to transition away from that too into solar. So utility scale solar, which is what FPL is doing. They're building all these utility scale solar farms, but generally speaking, if you're comparing electricity that comes from a renewable source to gas, we want to get away from that. So you have to start doing the electricity is going to transition to renewable sources no matter what. It's going to transition away from natural gas no matter what. It's going to go to, because solar is just cheaper than natural gas. So while that's happening, transitioning people away from using natural gas for heating and cooking and things like that is one of the elements. But that's a very small part of that. That's a very small part of the IRA. The biggest part of it has to do with electrification or switching to more energy efficient HVAC systems. So that's really the ones, and that's the ones where you're going to get the most money. I mean, the one for switching your stove, I don't even think it's like a huge amount of money. The ones that are really the big amount of money are the ones that are going to actually save electricity, which are heat pump water heaters, heat pump dryers, and heat pump HVAC systems. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm not the expert on it. I know, what I've read about it, but the idea would be on the website to post links and kind of just information, like general information that people can use to understand what kind of tax benefits they can get, and just economic benefits too. So that's something that I would be interested in. I mean, I guess, Kate, it would probably, I'd be interested to hear what, you would be interested in writing about, maybe related to what we've been talking about on like flood resilience, biosoils, that kind of thing, or maybe something else that you're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, I think before we do anything with the swales, maybe see what the commissioners go for and then see what happens. And if we do a pilot project, we could post that and follow and explain what we're doing and why. I mean, I think we could do that as that comes along.
Mhm.
I guess my ideas that would come to mind for content would be, I had previously sent this to Shantae, but I didn't see it implemented, was the Durham compliance number. It's a 24-hour hotline that if there's any, environmental issues, so that could be available to residents so that they have that information if they want to report something.
Okay.
I guess the whole tree ordinance, um, referencing Miami-Dade County and the whole Senate bill and what's required to remove.
So maybe instead of the tree ordinance, because that's something that's kind of like out of our control, maybe it would be interesting to just talk about what the advantages of having the trees are, other than the ones that people think about, like, the
Yeah,
fact that-
know about planting, native species and what the
Yeah.
benefits are, but
Mhm.
also we do have, there's the residents are still required to follow these regulations. And if they remove a tree, they have to have the certain arborist letter and it has to meet these certain criteria. So
Yeah,
having that information out there's been lots of controversy over that.
yeah,
Think would be set it clear, because I think I found that not only do the residents not know, but I had called recently about a tree and to the village, and they were like completely clueless.
yeah. Okay. Oh, so you're talking about the existing Miami-Dade tree ordinance.
Well, that, but also there's the state rule. I don't have it. I mean, I know I had talked about this a long time ago, about the House bill about what's
Oh, yeah.
for local governments not being able to regulate on single family homes. I just don't have that on the top of my head, but I
Yeah.
could send it to you guys, or we could for clarity. But it's if you have a specimen tree on your property and
Right.
it's, of a danger to the public or health and safety, then you can have it removed with a arborist letter. But the new House Senate bill has had stricter regulations on how these letters have to be prepared, because they were just having people from Georgia or Arizona write
Yeah.
the letters and then removing them, and with not even coming to see what the tree looked like or what the actual
Yeah.
what the issues were.
Did that pass? Did that pass the House?
They changed it, so
They did?
there's more restrictions on what the arborist letter, how it has to read, what backup it has.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great information to have there.
So I mean, permit. I mean, we could just send the link, like you need a
Yeah.
Miami-Dade County tree permit. Here it is. But
Yeah.
this is what, guidelines you have to have if you're going to be planning on removing this tree on your property.
So I put that in the notes there, those three elements. So you said the Durham compliance number, the tree ordinance regarding the county and the Florida law, and then just talking about planting native trees. And what about you, Daniela? What do you think you'd be interested in?
No, it was about the solar and the permeability of the Welsh. Well, because really I saw, sometimes I'm going kind of jogging around. I see many people use a lot of concrete.
Yeah.
I think since we talked 2 years ago, I see an explosion of concrete.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is something we can do in order to have a different impact on that.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing we can do is just restate our previous standpoint on swales, which they still haven't voted on. Because, our standpoint all along is that they shouldn't allow any development at all in swales. That was like our number one choice that we all voted on. And then the second choice was if they are going to, if they are going to accept anything, to limit it to permeable materials. But they haven't voted on that yet. So I'm not really sure what's happening with that. But it
Yeah.
would be a good idea to talk about why permeability is important.
I'll send you guys that City of Coral Gables. It talks about kind of like what we talked about before about what material is approvable in swale areas. And it talks about, it has to be of this type of vegetation or this type of sod or this type of green. And then in areas where it's not, where it's so much canopy that, nothing can grow underneath, they talk about what type of rock and that type of material that could be down on the swale area. It's all, they don't even allow, they don't even talk about paving in these areas.
It's crazy. That shouldn't even be allowed. Yeah.
Maybe we can, I don't know if it's easy to prove it or not, but it seems now with this kind of explosion of concrete things, it's like we are eating more sweet, but then we won't cure the diabetes with the insulin, with the drainage study and the big thing. So it's contrasting. We should put kind of evidence on that. We don't like to be flooded, but we are doing everything is possible to be flooded.
Well, but that's, I think, what you're talking about, why it's so important to talk to people about why permeability is important. I mean, there's like, pretty basic, physics that if there's nowhere for the water to go, it's going to flood. So I think that would be something good to have on the website, and just kind of like educating people, maybe before, and talk specifically about driveways, and just talk to them about how, if you put a driveway that's a concrete driveway in your home, which I have one, by the way, but it's because it was there before. When I replace it, it's not going to be a concrete driveway. Why it's important to not have something like that, to consider either, gravel or, permeable pavers.
Because maybe just to do some mathematics, like you take a portion of land and then you put an amount of concrete, so you cover 20% of that, you're reducing permeability, and then you tell the rest of the terrain cannot absorb that amount.
Yeah.
You are automatically flooding. And this is happening because you are living here, it's raining for real.
Yeah.
It's not fake.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that would be. So for you, I have you down for,
it's possible to ask Biscayne when they ask for permit about this driveway and things to give this documentation. Gives kind of
yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, it's a really good idea. Yeah. Yeah. Because they have the driveway permit application. I think it's just in, like, you can just take one,
exactly,
print it out.
just clip it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea.
I mean, you can still choose whatever you want, but just be aware.
So maybe we can draft up some of that content for the next time, so we can just kind of look at it. I don't think it has to be anything extensive, but just something. So I mean, I have myself down for the Inflation Reduction Act, all of those tax incentives. I have Kate down for the Durham compliance number, the Miami-Dade tree ordinance, Florida tree law, and then we're gonna say native trees and plants.
Yes.
Native trees and plants. And then Daniela, have you for residential solar, maybe just like general information about it, but like, the process of installation and why it's,
I mean, the
advantages.
a couple of examples, and I think that the most helpful thing beside all the document, I think you can write is always create a kind of fake example to have an idea how much you're spending, how much you are coming back. So give a kind of balance sheet where they see the convenience.
Yeah.
And then the projection. So the people is a little bit more, they can make the calculation based on their electrical bill.
Yeah.
They can make it, but just it's easy to manage, because when you have 3-4 pages of instruction and things, it's like, yeah, okay. But just a simple example with the electrical bill, the solar, the investment, and what is changed.
There's got to be some kind of just like a calculator out there, like a basic calculator that you
I
could
think so.
Department of Energy or something like that.
Even already on Google, you have the Google Solar and things.
Yeah.
The addition of your house.
Yeah, which is not really that accurate, by the way, but because if you look at my house, it looks like it's like bright yellow, like solar. But if right now in the winter, there's no sun. Like my panels, only the ones that are north facing have sun. The ones in the south are totally covered. So like I'm barely producing any solar right now. I knew that was going to happen from the beginning. So next on the agenda, I think we covered some of these other items actually. So talked about the swales. I'm not sure why permitting fees is there. I think that might have been just left over from before. So we already talked about that. We also talked about 2023, which was going to be flood resilience and solar. Lighting was actually an interesting one. So that's something that I think is going to be upcoming that they're going to start talking about once they get through the swales. And so there's kind of two elements of it that is like public lighting and private lighting. So I was looking around at some ordinances that different municipalities have. And there's a lot of guidelines out there. And so the biggest issue is that the light, like talking about residential properties, that the light is not trespassing into neighbors' properties. So there's like basically regulations about like you can't have a light, like a flood lamp that's like flooding all light into your neighbor's property. It has to be basically facing down to the ground. And there's a limitation for, they call it light trespass, for how much that light can trespass into your neighbor's property. And also how much of that light needs to be down facing versus something that's not really like dark sky compliant. So there's actually code, like kind of like a pre-written code that's out there that addresses all of these things. So it talks about the intensity of the light, it talks about color temperature, and it talks about light trespass. So you can kind of like sort of copy and paste codes into your existing code. So I sent all that information over to, I think it was Commissioner Kennedy that was asking about it. So I sent it over to him, just what I found that other municipalities are doing. And if you know, actually on my way here, I saw there are a couple of houses that it's kind of obnoxious. I mean, I'm glad I don't live next to one of those houses. They have like street lighting in their house, like crazy street lighting. Like it's like, if you looked at the neighborhood with a drone at night, you would probably see some of these houses. And it's like, it's, you know, to me, it's not only, it's, you know, the first order of business is really darkening the skies so that we can actually, you know, see the natural sky and see the stars. And there's like a big push for that. Yeah. Light pollution. Yeah. So there's a big push for that. A lot of that has more to do with public lighting than residential lighting, because, you know, residential lighting isn't really going to necessarily affect the sky as much as like street lights do. But it would be interesting to hear, you know, what everybody's opinions are on, you know, if we should even be looking at that. And if we do look at it, you know, what elements of that should we be looking at? I mean, we as a, you know, the village, obviously we as a board can't do anything, but we can recommend based off of our you know, knowledge in what direction the conversation should go. So I mean, for me, I have a street light that I can see from my bed and it shines into my room, and even with the shade closed, I can still see it. It like shines directly into my eye. It's like an old sodium lamp. So I'm actually concerned because FPL, they've been changing those lamps. So the LED lamps that they've actually put in are actually really good ones. We've been lucky because the ones, at least the ones I've seen in Biscayne Park, not these over here. That's different. That's Florida. Those are horrible. Yeah, that's DOT. No, the ones that are here that they've replaced, they're really good because the light only goes down. So I would like, if they install one of those where my street light is in the corner of 120th and 10th, it would actually be better because it would probably light that intersection better. And but the light, like the houses that are right around that light, they're totally brightened by that light. I mean, it's really bad. So to me, that element of it is important, the public lighting and like the FPL lighting. And the other element of it is, I do think that, you know, our neighborhood is like one of the great things I think to me about our neighborhood is the fact that we're not like just totally bright all over the place at night. And that allows us to have the wildlife that we have, including owls, foxes. Those animals would not be around if we didn't have the darkness. But if you look at some of the new houses going up, I mean, the one that's right next to the park right now at night, it's like totally lit up. Like all the walls are lit at night. It's like a bright star. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, obviously we're not like trying to infringe on people's rights as it is, but no, but at the same time, you know, these things do affect the neighbors. It's not like if it's something that's affecting the neighbors, I do think that we should have the option of having some kind of a code in place. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think that we could provide recommendations for what the village would want for the FPNL light replacements, you know, what kind of lamp shade and LED lighting we would want. I definitely would recommend all the lights be down lights
Yeah.
for wildlife purposes and
Yeah.
to maintain that integrity is what you were saying before. I mean, as far as what they're going to put on private, I mean, I think we could see what other people are doing, but I don't think there's anything too crazy about it because, I mean, look at what, like some of the examples that we have to have going on here, and it is kind of obnoxious. And me personally, I wouldn't want that as my neighbor because like it would be shining in my house, you know? So
Yeah.
I don't think that's under our purview, but I think for us is what we could recommend is what type of bulbs and what type of, you know, the lumens and lampshade.
Yeah.
One question: as Biscayne Park, there is any power to influence the color, warmness, the type of color, the light? Is FPL deciding they can do one street in one color, one street in another color? Or we can ask kind of Biscayne Park standard.
From what I understood when I was talking to Mario about it, we can sort of like ask for a certain type of lighting from FPL, but I think we have to be proactive about it. And I don't think we are. Like, I think we have to be in communication with them because otherwise they're coming in and they're replacing some of these lamps. And yeah, a lot of them are really good. But if you look at the one that's on 121st and 11th that I've always talked about, that's horrific. And like, we should not have any lighting like that. I don't know why they installed that lamp there. It's on the North Miami side, but I don't see why they wouldn't also be able to install one on this side. So I do think that we need to somehow, I mean, I've brought this up numerous times and kind of gotten nowhere with it, but I do think that somehow we need to be in control of what lighting gets put into our neighborhood. And I think that, so, you know, the recommendation that I would like to give for us to vote on, at least regarding public lighting and the FPL, like the street lighting, would be that the recommendation is that Dark Sky is basically an organization. It's a nonprofit that gives guidelines for how, you know, lighting should be implemented. And some of it is related to street lighting, some of it's related to residential. So for me, I think it would be useful to use those as a guideline for our recommendation, because those, you know, related to sustainability and resilience. On the sustainability side, you know, it has to do with energy efficiency, because like these LED lamps are obviously using 90% less electricity. And then, you know, on the ecological side, it's like what Kate mentioned, has to do with wildlife. And that to me applies both, you know, public and private. So I think the only thing we can really recommend without getting too specific is that, you know, the municipality follows Dark Sky recommendations, you know, the Dark Sky initiative, the recommendations for, you know, for public and private lighting. Does that sound like something that you all could be on board with?
So FPL is managing this light, but Biscayne Park is paying the electricity for this light.
Correct. Correct. And we're not only paying the electricity, we're paying for the lights too. Like it's a lot of money. It's like $20,000 a year, like how much we pay for street lighting.
It's like a rent.
Yeah, we're basically renting the lamps, and it's kind of a racket because once they change them all over to LED, you think they're going to lower that price? No, of course not. So, and still, even there, I couldn't get a 100% straight answer on what that $20,000 is actually for.
If they put the LED, we should see a change of the consumption.
You would think so. You would think so. But the way that they do it is kind of tricky because they don't charge us for the consumption. They charge us for the lamps. And so I don't know what equation they're using to come up with that charge, but it's not like, at least if you look at our electricity bill, it's not charged by consumption.
They make the money by the difference of the profit.
Of course, yeah. It's, so every time they switch to an LED, I'm surprised they're not doing it quicker because, every time they switch to an LED, they're be saving a lot of money. So I would like to bring, to a vote that at least for our initial recommendation to the commission that we recommend the dark sky. Let me see the official name of it here.
Sky map.
I think it's called Dark Sky Initiative.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I would have to look.
Oh, it's the International Dark Sky Association. No, we don't have to necessarily vote on it this time, but here I'll send you all a link. I'll just put Ante on DC.
Okay, I see it. International Dark Sky.
Where you find that kind of guy. Sky friendly lighting.
Yeah. And that's it. It's pretty general. I mean, it's those 5 principles are pretty much what is the guidelines that's used for the basis of any code that's written. And even if it's not code related, just like the guidelines for how lighting is designed. And then I'll send also a copy of the guidelines.
Yeah, maybe we can some leverage. Biscayne Park Village Temple of Birds. This is one of the most effective wildlife birds.
Yeah.
My only concern with this code is how can that be enforced?
Well, I think it's a good question, but I think we definitely can enforce it if there isn't any code. So I think, like, for instance, let's say somebody, builds a home next to you that has like this really bright light. Right now, there's like nothing we can do about it. So if it becomes part of the code, that means that when people submit building plans, there will need to be a lighting design schematic or something like that included in those codes. So it would have to be something that the planning and zoning board is or I think it's called design and review board now.
Yeah.
That is, looking at it in some way. And then,
I guess also complaint
yeah, I mean, if you,
driven.
yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to have to be, somebody saying, hey, these people, installed a deck light that's shining into my bedroom all night. So right now, I don't think that there's anything that anybody can do about that.
Yeah.
So I forwarded that to Shantae so she could forward that to everybody. Maybe just take a look at it for next time, because I also forwarded the links for what the other municipalities are doing.
Okay, cool.
And okay, so the rest of it, yeah, we talked old business. We already talked about all that. So the next meeting date, let's just take a quick look there.
Did you get the minute?
Let's see.
I guess-
No, she said she didn't get it.
All right. So, want me to look it up, or do you have it? The next meeting?
Well, I'm looking at it here, but I don't see it on the calendar. It should have been the third Tuesday, which is the 21st of February. So maybe I thought Shante had sent us a list of dates.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she is February 24th.
21st? Okay.
That's it for you guys?
Yeah, that's the 21st. Let's see. That is a, yeah, it works for me. Just put it All right. So does anybody have anything else they'd like to add?
Nope.
All right. All in favor of adjourning the meeting? Aye.
Aye.
Second.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
can introduce butterfly